Today, we become legends.
I've done some videos in the past about the highest damage basic attacks and abilities and such, but I thought it would be interesting to look at the upper limits of every stat in the game and how you can achieve them. If you enjoy these speculative type of videos, then be sure to sub to the channel for more of them. This is the best place to find this stuff because it seems no one else is insane enough to undertake such tasks. We're on the road to 100k subs and we'd love to have you around in the Nay Nation. I hope to see you there. So some stats in the game are hard capped, meaning you can never go above a certain value. Some are soft capped, meaning you can go over a certain number, but you get less return on buying more of that stat in the future once you do. And some have no cap implemented on them whatsoever. You can go as high as items, buffs, or abilities will take you. To give this video some structure, I'll cover them in these three groups. So let's start with the hard cap stats. I'll go over these relatively quickly since there's not much interesting to discuss beyond the number they're actually capped at. Cooldown reduction and crowd control reduction are both capped at 40%. I don't want to see any of you buying 70% cooldown reduction in my games, you hear me? An interesting one that most people don't know is that lifesteal has a hard cap in Smite. However, it's different for magical lifesteal and for physical lifesteal. For magicals, it's 65%, while for physicals, it's 100%. This cap is almost always irrelevant in your average build, which is probably why most people don't know about it, but it is there and does come into play in some niche situations, usually with magical characters. Don't ask why magicals have a lower hard cap than physicals do for lifesteal, because I really have no idea. I assume it's just an archaic feature of Smite that hasn't been normalized yet. That will be my guess. Attack speed is hard capped at 2.5 attacks per second. I'm sure all of you watching know that one. Flat penetration has a hard cap of 50. Once again, this is usually not relevant in your average match, so I don't fault you if you didn't know this one. Though with Thanatos specifically, it's pretty relevant since his 2 gives 35 flat pen by itself. Building any more than 15 with him can cause you to overcap when using the 2. Much like flat pen, percent pen also has a hard cap of 40%. This is the same for both classes. This one is actually pretty relevant though, as many items in the game now give percent pen since the Season 7 mid-season patch, and it is definitely possible to overcap this without noticing. Even something as simple as building Karen's Coin, Obsidian Shard and Soul Reaver all in the same build would overcap you. It's worth noting however that this only applies to item stats. Abilities that give percent pen will bypass this cap. So I guess the true highest percent pen value you can get is 70% by combining Callie's 30% from her passive on her target and 40% from items. This differs from flat pen, which does count the abilities into the cap and can't go over. It's strange how it works this way, but that's how it is. Protections are hard caps at 325, another one you probably know of since it's actually pretty easy to hit that cap if you're building full defense. However, abilities that give protections can bypass the 325 cap, which does mean there's some interesting competition for the highest protections possible. Prior to the Isis reworker for 3, it used to steal protections, not just reduce them, and so she could increase her own protections by up to 360% by hitting 12 targets with her 3, resulting in a max magical protection value of 1300. This results in a full build Scylla ult hitting for only 235 damage, by the way. If you want more info on that, I'll link a video for you in the card here. However, that interaction no longer works, and so the crown has fallen to Fenrir, who doubles his protections while ulting if he's at 5 runes, and so he can reach 650 of each protections. As far as I know, that's the highest prots possible since the Isis change. Health is also hard capped, one that you may not know as, once again, it's never relevant in an actual game, but the HP hard cap is 5500. This has actually been possible to hit in the past of Smite with an old version of Gauntlet of Thebes and Ymir. Mana is hard capped at 4000, though as far as I'm aware, no god in Smite history has ever been able to reach this cap, so I figured out what the absolute max mana pool would be using existing gods and items as of the publishing of this video. This uses Hel, who being a healer, a mage, and a stance switcher means she has the largest base mana pool to work from. With this build, Book of Thoth, Shoes of Focus, Polynomicon, Soul Reaver, Breastplate of Valor and Spectral Armor for a grand total of 3890 mana. So close, yet so far. Crit chance is capped at 100%, duh. And finally for the hard cap stats, we have HP 5 and MP 5, which are both hard capped at 100. So let's move on to the soft cap stats. For a brief explanation, a soft cap means that you in theory have no limit, but once you reach certain thresholds, any of that stat you buy in future will give you less than it actually states it will give you. This is known as diminishing returns. This is way more complicated than a simple hard cap, but you should understand it better through an example. So let's take movement speed. Speed in Smite has no diminishing returns between 0 and 457 movement speed. So if you have less than 457 movement speed and buy an item that gives 10% speed, you will get 10% speed. Simple. Once you cross the threshold, however, and have between 458 and 540 movement speed, you will have 20% diminishing returns. So you buy a 10% movement speed item, it'll actually only give you 8% speed if you're in this range. Any speed higher than 540 has a 50% diminishing return, so 5% speed if you bought 10%, you get the drill. So while in theory there is no limit to your movement speed, the more you buy, the less effective it becomes, which instates what we call a soft cap. This soft cap is calculated using some math that I won't get into in this short video, but the cap is 753.55 movement speed. In theory, you could never go higher than that. However, there are a few cases that can break this soft cap. I have no idea why, and after testing many movement speed increasing abilities and items, there's no correlation or reason as to why certain abilities can bypass this cap while others cannot. Chronos 2 is one of these such abilities though, and I believe it holds the key to unlocking the highest movement speed possible in Smite. This ability scales up in speed over time and gives 40% movement speed at its peak right at the end of the ability. As far as I know, 40% is the largest speed modifier in the game that can also bypass the soft cap of 753.55 speed. If you know of any abilities that give more than 40% speed and, this is important, can bypass the cap, then let me know down below. Please do test that the ability in question can bypass the cap though. Some can and some can, and it seems like the only way of knowing is testing. Chronos 2 was the highest movement speed ability I found that can do this. Since we're way past the top threshold of 540 speed for diminishing returns, we only get 50% of that value added on top of our previous cap of 753.55. Movement speed is calculated as a percentage of your god's base speed, so MS is more valuable for faster gods than it is for slower ones. This works the same way for attack speed, by the way. Chronos has a base speed stat of 360, so 20% of that is 72 speed. Add that to our soft cap of 753.55 and we get a grand total of 825.55 speed. I believe this is the highest possible, though I can't be sure without testing every single movement speed ability in the game individually, and I simply do not have time for that. I've tested many of them though, and this was the highest I found that can bypass the cap, so 825.55 is my final answer. Moving on to our last category for the video, we have the no cap stats. These stats can be raised as high as items, abilities and buffs will allow. First up we have anti-heal, and while we're at it, healing boosts. You might be inclined to say, doesn't anti-heal have a hard cap since you can't get higher than 100%? Which is a reasonable response. You wouldn't expect to apply 115% anti-heal and have the enemy heals damage themselves, would you? However, you can apply more than 100% anti-heal, and we know this because if someone applies, for example, 110% anti-heal to someone that has Rod of Asclepius, their 25% heal bonus from that item will counteract some of the anti-heal, and they will actually still heal for 110 minus 25 or 85% of the original heal. This interaction proves that anti-heal can in fact be stacked above 100%, since if it was hard capped to 100%, the 25% heal boost will bring the heal back to 75% of the original value, not 85%. The next uncapped stat is protection reduction, in both forms, flat and percent. There is no limit to how much protection reduction you can apply to a target. This notably differs from penetration, which is hard capped at 50 flat and 40%. This is usually only relevant in niche situations where either protection reducing abilities are involved or multiple gods applying protection reduction effects onto the same target are involved. And the final uncapped stat in Smite is the most explosive, that being power. I'm sure most of you know that power in Smite is uncapped, so let's find out what the highest power value possible is with the current items and gods. Magical power is typically 2.5 times more plentiful than physical power, so we're definitely looking for a magical god here. Kukulkan is, I think, the best choice here, as his passive gives him somewhere around 130 extra power with a mana-based build. I'm not using exploits like stacking multiple fire giant buffs here, by the way. I want this power value to actually be possible in-game. So here goes. This is also only using a single god. I don't want to be stacking up multiple gods so that they can apply power buffs to the god and stuff like that. This is just the amount of power that a single god can get using buffs and items. So here goes. The build is Book of Thoth, Doom Orb, Polynomicon, Soul Reaver, Book of the Dead, and Rod of Tahuti. This build, combined with both power potions, red buff, and enhanced fire giant on Kukulkan, gives a total power of 1582. This was the highest power I could achieve in practice without abuse like stacking fire giant buffs, etc. This will change with coming patches, I'm sure, but as of the release of this video, that's the maximum. And that's it. Hopefully you enjoyed this more brief look at what every stat in Smite maxes out at. I actually learned a couple things myself when researching for this video, so I'm sure if you watched till the end, you probably did too. So why not drop a like and subscribe for more videos like these in the future on the channel. I'll catch you guys later. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.